All right, we're going to get started. Caitlin, you want to put the presentation up? We are recording the meeting just for our purposes to make sure that we can go back and get the feedback that we receive here. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Regional Long Range Transportation Plan Update meeting being provided to Butler County. Thank you for being here. My name is Dom DeAndrea, and I'm Director of Transportation Planning at the Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. And the way we're going to do this, we have some slides to get through, and we'd like you to just remind you to mute. We will take comments and questions at the end of the presentation. Just to be respective of everyone's time. Next slide. I'd like to just do some introductions. Let's see here. County commissioners, I thought I saw Commissioner Boozle. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, Kevin Boozle, Butler County Commissioner. Thank you, Dom, and looking forward to this presentation as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Geyer?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being on this call. It's an important meeting, and we appreciate your input and feedback. Thanks, Dom.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Oshie? Is she with us this afternoon?
I know she plans to get on the call, Dom.
Okay.
She's coming from another meeting.
All right. County staff, let's see here. I'm trying to read through the list here. Is Mark Gordon with us?
I don't see Mark, but I know Joel McKay and Joe Saylor are on the call with us.
Hi, Joel. Hi, Joe. You want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, Dom. This is Joel McKay, planner with Butler County.
Hi, Joe Saylor, Executive Director for Economic Development.
Thank you both for being here. And how about PennDOT district staff?
Good afternoon, Dom. It's Harold Swan, Planning Programming Manager from District 10. And also we have Alice Hammond on, our ADE for Assistant District and Engineer for Design. Alice,
hi, Harold. Hi, Alice.
Oh. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Brian Allen is hoping to attend, but he wasn't sure he had a conflict. He might be jumping on later.
Okay. Let me go around and ask, is that all for PennDOT district staff then, Harold?
That's all for us, yes.
All right. How about SPC staff? Andy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being with us this evening, and thank you for your time. Andy Waple, Deputy Executive Director at SPC.
Thanks, Andy. Dave Totten?
Hi, Dave Totten, Senior Transit Planner, SPC.
Let's see. Going down the list here. Lillian?
Hi, everyone. Lillian Gabreski, Manager of Sponsored Programs Development. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Lillian. Rhonda?
Hi, Rhonda Craig, Public Involvement Coordinator. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Ryan? Thanks, Rhonda.
Yes, this is Ryan Gordon, Manager, Transportation Program Development. I also have Greg Lagana of my staff is also on the call as well. Thank you, Dom.
Oh, sorry, I missed you, Greg. Sorry. Thanks, guys. How about Tom? Is that Tom Clevan I see there?
Thanks, Dom. Tom Clevan, Manager, Transit Planning at SPC.
And I know that Caitlin, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Dom. Hi, everyone. Caitlin O'Connor. I'm the comms director here at SPC.
And Jen. Thanks, Caitlin.
Sure. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Jen Lasser, Director of Workforce and Economic Development.
Did I inadvertently miss any SPC staff? All right. Next slide, please. So I'd like to acknowledge Butler County's representation on SBC's board. They've introduced themselves. That would be County Commissioners Geyer, Oshie, and Boozle, as well as SPC Commissioners Gordon and Davis, along with Butler County planning staff, and thank them for their continuing support in the development of the long-range plan and the transportation improvement plan. We're here today to talk about future investments in our region, and specifically Butler County, and present you the draft long-range transportation plan. The long-range transportation plan is the most important effort led by SPC. We started this effort last year, and it included many meetings with your county planners, PennDOT folks, Butler Transit, and others. The draft long-range plan invests about $490 million into specific highway, bridge, and transit projects in Butler County. In addition, there's another $558 million that we have reserved in line items that can be used for projects in Butler, Armstrong, and Indiana, all counties within PennDOT District 10's area of SPC. We will talk about some of the specific Butler County projects later in this presentation. The presentation will cover many of the key aspects of long-range plan development, such as schedule, public involvement, the review of the plan's policies and strategies. Then we will cover the transportation planning and long-range plan project list development, including a look at current transportation improvement program funding, the TIP funding, and projects advancing from the long-range plan to the TIP, and some of the listed current long-range plan projects. Then we'll shift gears a little bit and discuss activities in progress relative to economic development and the community initiatives portion of our plan. Next slide, please. So this is sort of the schedule we have laid out. Again, we started last year. We've had work group meetings. We'll get into that a little bit, but I think 9 work group meetings we had between October and February to come up with the project list for the long-range plan. We had our first round of this type of meeting last fall. We met with the transit operators as well, and we took all of that input and feedback and those transit and highway bridge project lists to our Transportation Technical Committee, TTC, and Transit Operators Committee, TOC. In March, we took those project lists to them for their approval. Then we conducted the federally required environmental justice analysis and air quality conformity. I will talk about that later on in this presentation. And we began assembling this draft document in late March and April. And this is where we're at now. We're in the 30-day comment period that started May 11th, I believe. And that is where we're at here. We have Butler's meeting is the next to last meeting. We have Allegheny County's meeting on Thursday. We've had 1 meeting in each county plus 1 meeting for the city of Pittsburgh. We've had 11 meetings in this 30-day comment period. And our plan is to bring it to our commission at their June 26th meeting this month. Next slide, please. So this long-range plan update utilizes the efforts of the previous 2019 plan as a basis. The 2019 plan used an extensive process that included expert resource panels, public surveys, and public outreach to develop the region's visions, goals, and strategies. Most of what was developed in terms of vision, goals, and strategies is still relevant for this plan. Our policy committee, commissioners, and county planners reviewed the previous vision, goals, and strategies, and we have updated them based on their feedback. More feedback was also received in our first round of public meetings in November and December of last year. 2 major events have happened since the last time we did this in 2019. We are emerging from COVID-19 and dealing with its impacts on transportation and the economy, transportation, particularly transit. And we have the new transportation bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, that has provided us additional funding in the short term. Next slide, please. So the regional vision statement has been updated, and it's right there on the screen. A world-class, safe, well-maintained, and connected multimodal transportation system that provides mobility for all, empowers resilient and sustainable communities, and supports a globally competitive economy. A transportation system connects people to life and life's activities, and it connects people to opportunities, specifically job opportunities. The regional vision means taking advantage of our considerable existing assets and developing, supporting, and implementing projects and programs that advance our progress. This plan is about creating and connecting people to opportunity. The opportunity can be physical, tangible connections like improved regional transit, or it can be enhanced broadband connectivity, as we found out during COVID. The opportunity can create connections to training for the jobs of the future that allow the region's workforce to have family-sustaining job opportunities in new and emerging industries. It is about connecting with opportunities to invest in and take stewardship of our older communities, as well as investing in strategies that protect our environment and address resiliency. Next slide, please. So this slide shows some examples of how projects contained in the plan advance the vision and strategies. For transit, it's equitable, seamless linkages between the region's public transit service, including first and last mile connections. That could mean expansion of rapid and frequent transit service into and out of downtown Pittsburgh from east, west, north, and south. For active transportation, it means completion of the regional trail network and connecting the regional trail network to communities and local active transportation networks to support healthful living and individual mobility. For roadways, it means a network of safe, well-maintained, and modern highways and bridges. Implementation of resilient and adaptable context-based street design. So the projects listed here are an example of how that vision and those strategies are carried out. Next slide, please. The transportation planning process goes through various steps in a cycle to produce the Transportation Improvement Program and the Long Range Plan. The Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, is a 4-year plan of projects that are active or about to be active that has a major update every 2 years. The Long Range Transportation Plan is a 25-year plan that requires an update every 4 years. So we have this draft Long Range Transportation Planning document completed after many months of effort, and our goal is to have our commission again adopted at their June meeting. So in the next few days, we want your feedback on the draft plan. Later on, we will let you know how you can do that. Now I will turn it over to my colleague Ryan Gordon, who is our Manager of Transportation Program Development, and Ryan is going to get more into the specifics of the plan. Ryan?
Thank you, Dom. I'm going to briefly review the project list development process and how we look to invest in highways, bridges, and transit at a regional level and how that breaks down. Then I will zoom into Butler County to highlight some of the projects that we have on our long-range transportation plan. So this diagram depicts the general process that was followed during the development of the LRTP project list. Public involvement is very critical and is the beginning and ending of the process to update the long-range transportation plan. We're here today near the end of our process to provide a summary of the draft LRTP during the comment period in the next to last box. You can see in the first box, we kicked the whole thing off with public and stakeholder engagement to begin with. And we also had a meeting very similar to this back in November, October timeframe of 2022. So in the development of our project list, we worked through our 3 LRTP work groups. There's one in District 10 that includes SPC staff, PennDOT staff, PennDOT district staff, PennDOT central office staff, and county staff. We utilized the work group to review our current conditions and the status of our performance measures, and to develop the long-range needs and candidate projects. SPC conducts screening and consistency criteria analysis to review the candidate projects and provide input to the work groups. Then a conservative identification of the future transportation revenues was conducted, leading to the creation of our investment plan. This is in collaboration with members of PennDOT and the LRTP work groups. The group updated the cost estimates and timing for the projects that were already on the long-range plan. Then we looked to integrate new projects as needs and funding allowed. There were a total of 9 work group meetings to come to a consensus on the region's long-range transportation plan draft project list. Then we conduct an environmental justice analysis and an air quality conformity analysis that were conducted in the late winter, early spring, and then the draft is made available for public comment in meetings like tonight. Next slide, please. So here were the focus areas for investment on the fiscally constrained long-range transportation plan. Asset management and safety continue to be key focuses for the region. With the addition of federal funding for bridges under the IIJA, or Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, we now have a significant number of new bridge projects that are listed on the LRTP. As always, transit operations and facilities remain another key area of investment. The LRTP work groups reviewed all candidate projects with these focuses in mind. Working on versions of the LRTP list are then developed and discussed through several meetings, and the process was collaborative and consensus driven in order to come up with the fiscally constrained project list we now have. You can see some of our other areas of investment throughout the region include efficiency in operations and our programs for ped bike and air quality, and also local or off-system bridge funding. Next slide, please. So the long-range plan is a long-term view of the transportation investments in the SPC region looking out to 2050. Within this time frame, we have a conservative estimate of the revenue that we expect to be available through the life of the plan. Projects are put on the plan. They cannot exceed this amount in what's called fiscal constraint. The time frame of the plan is broken up into 3 stages, and the funds are assigned to each stage. Stage 1 is our current TIP, or Transportation Improvement Program, in the years 2023 to 2026. In this time frame, we have a very detailed program of all the projects, and we list every project by phase, by year, by fund type, and the amount. In stage 2, this comprises the next 8 years after the current TIP. In this stage, we have the total amount remaining on the projects beyond the TIP years and total costs of projects on projects that are set to start in those years. In this stage, we do not include minor projects, and we do include what's called investment category line items. So we may just have an amount of money that we say is for bridge preservation, for example. The next stage is stage 3. This is years 2035 to 2050. In this stage, our projects are much more conceptual in nature from their descriptions, and we use a large amount of funding in our investment category line items, and the funding and costs are much more at a conceptual level. So we really list bigger projects out there. We are going to have a number of TIP updates before we even get out to 2035. So just keep in mind that this time frame represents numerous TIP updates and extends all the way to 2050. So many of the new projects on the LRTP actually are in the latter stages of stage 2 or stage 3. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take a look at the investments of the long range plan in 2 different areas. First, I'll talk about highway bridge investments, then I'll touch on the transit investments. As I mentioned earlier, we estimate the amount of funding that's available for each of the time frames, each of the stages, which goes out to 2050. Then we match revenue to our projects and our investment categories based on the detailed work that's done in our LRTP work groups. This graph shows the investment breakdown by our investment categories. As you can see, bridges continue to receive the highest percentage of investment at 44%, followed by roadway work at 32%. That's no different than the investment category breakdown at just the tip level. So for many tips now, bridge investment has been our #1 area of investment for the region. You can also see that we have safety, efficiency, and operations in there. And you can also see we have what's called the SPC competitive programs. Those are all significant slices of the pie. And our competitive program includes the Transportation Alternatives Program, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, Carbon Reduction Program, and our Smart Transportation Program. Next slide, please. One of the other key characteristics of the LRTP highway and bridge investment is a focus on major corridors. And there are major corridors in each of our counties. These are the corridors that comprise the NHS, or National Highway System. This is the system that we have our performance measures for condition that is monitored and reported. So you can see on the map that there are major corridors in each of our counties receiving investment through this plan, including in Butler County, routes like Route 8, 19, 228, and 422. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to zoom into just Butler County level and talk about some of the highlights that we have on the program. I've noted here a few projects in Butler that are moving from the LRTP Stage 2 to the TIP. And this is a very good thing because it's showing that projects are moving through the development process and are moving closer to construction and completion in the TIP years. I also wanted to list just a sprinkling of highlights of a few notable projects that are on the current TIP. And you can see that includes work on Route 68 and then Route 422 bridges. I also scattered in a few smaller bridges that are throughout Butler County, and keep in mind a large investment we've got in bridges across the region. So next slide, please. Now talking about the long-range transportation plan, now we're looking in stages 2 and 3. Here are some highlights for Butler County of both bridge projects and roadway projects. As I mentioned, bridges continue to be a large percentage of the investment in the region, and Butler County is no different. We've got some large bridges there, including that Carnes Crossing Bridge, which is actually on the TIP, but cash flowed with its work into the stage 2 of the long range plan. We also have some large bridges on 422 and 528 as well. On the roadway side, we have major investments on Route 228 in the form of 3 Degree Road. This is also a project that's spanning both the tip and going funding into stage 2 of the long range plan. And also a large project of 228, the Mars Railroad Bridge West expansion, and that is in stage 2 and stage 3 of the long range plan, and that's a well over $100 million project as well. You'll find all of the projects, the full list, in the appendix of the long range plan, which is on our website, along with interactive mapping that'll show you where all the projects are and the details of all the projects. Also, keep in mind that there are a large amount of funding that is maintained in reserve line items. So we've set aside funds within District 10 to cover additional bridges not listed, additional highway projects, and additional safety projects. So next slide, please. The LRTP also includes revenue projections, investments, and a project list on the transit side. And here's a graph showing the regional investments in transit in the region. And you can see it's largely an operating and maintenance investment, but we also have a lot of funding for things like buses, new buses, purchases of passenger vehicles. There's also facilities that can house these assets, and additional equipment to improve both the facilities and the buses themselves. And then we have in Allegheny County, fixed guideway maintenance and some new capacity as well. Next slide, please. Oh, back one. So this is just switching to zooming into Butler County on the transit side. It's important to note that our SPC transit planners worked with each of the transit operators in the whole region to identify needs and long-term projects that end up getting listed in the long-range plan. And it's no different with meeting with Butler Transit Authority and really getting to work on what their needs were in the region. You can see what the total amount is in excess of $100 million through the life of the plan. And some of the highlights include light maintenance facilities and a SR at the SR 528 park and ride. There's also several projects that our transit planners wanted me to mention, and that includes $3.75 million for design and construction at 2 park and ride facilities for commuter service to Pittsburgh. This includes 30 spaces in Evans City and approximately 60 spaces out on Stevenson Road. It also includes $120,000 for 6 new bus shelters, $500,000 for upgrades to office and garage equipment, and $400,000 in replacement of CNG buses. Next slide, please. So interstate is an important aspect. We do include a list of the statewide managed interstate long-range plan in the appendices of the long-range plan. The funding that we have has been discussed up to this point is on projects that typically don't include interstate. These projects are major and oftentimes span multiple counties and districts, so it's really managed at the statewide level. And I inserted one example of a $214 million investment in I-79 in the District 10 Butler County area. And in addition to just the interstate program, we also worked with PennDOT District 10 to identify unfunded interstate needs as well. And in addition to our currently programmed projects, there's a total of $342 million in unfunded interstate needs in the SPC counties in District 10. So, like I said, lot of needs on the interstate network as well. So I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn it back over to Dom. He's going to talk a little bit more about some other requirements of the long-range plan and how we are doing on those.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
We got you, Dom.
Thanks, Ryan. Hey, I should have mentioned at the top that if you don't want to wait to ask a question, if you have a question in your mind and you don't want to wait till the end, you can use the chat box feature. The chat features on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. You could use that. And at the end of the presentation, we will review the questions in the chat box. Okay, other required long-range plan elements. Population and employment forecasts. Our forecasts project a growth in both when looking at the entire region, all 10 counties, out to year 2050. We're projecting a very small growth in population, about 1%, I think, region-wide now, and a 12% increase in employment. Transportation performance management, these have to do with the federally required tracking of bridge and road condition, safety, travel reliability, and air quality. Air quality conformity, that answers the question, does our proposed plan and project list meet the Federal Clean Air Act regulations? And environmental justice answers the question, are the benefits and burdens of our plan and our projects equitably distributed? And of course, we are required to coordinate our efforts with many other agencies, for example, regulatory, environmental resource, and cultural resource agencies like the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Next slide, please. So environmental justice, the conclusion of our environmental justice analysis indicates that projects identified in our draft long-range plan demonstrates that benefits of the programmed projects and total investment of resources are equitable to populations who are traditionally or have the potential to be disadvantaged in the planning process. Furthermore, no population groups were found to be disproportionately or adversely affected by the implementation of our draft plan. Next slide, please. All right, so air quality conformity. I won't try to get too far into the weeds on this. It's a pretty technical subject. First, I'll go over the air quality designation areas. The EPA has designated 3 non-attainment and maintenance areas in the SPC planning region for ozone, the 8-hour ozone standard. These include the Pittsburgh-Beaver Valley non-attainment area comprised of 7 counties, Allegheny, Armstrong, Beaver, Butler, Fayette, Washington, and Westmoreland. That's going to be the area in the blue. The Greene County maintenance area comprised of Greene County by itself in its entirety. That's the area in green. And the Clearfield, Indiana maintenance area comprised of Clearfield County, which is outside of SPC's planning area, and Indiana County, which is within SPC's planning area, and that is the area in orange. Conformity determinations for transportation plans and programs are based as appropriate on build, no build analysis, and in this case, comparisons to an emissions budget. For the Pittsburgh-Beaver Valley ozone area, the charts on the right refer to the ozone standard. The graph on the top is nitrogen oxides, a byproduct of fuel combustion. The graph on the bottom is volatile organic compounds, which is mostly unburned gas from the tailpipe. For both graphs, the top line is the motor vehicle emission budget approved for our area for the type of emissions in tons per day. The bottom line is the emission projection out to year 2050. Conformity is demonstrated if the emission projection is lower than the budget. The graphs do show that this is the case for our draft plan. Next slide. The other thing we have to look at, the other federal standard, is the particulate matter, PM 2.5. The term refers to particulate matter, tiny particles in the air that are 2.5 microns or less in width. Again, similar to the last graph, we have nitrogen oxides, a byproduct of fuel combustion for the graph on the top. The graph on the bottom are the precursor emissions. We're talking tire wear, brake wear, fuel combustion byproducts. Again, both graphs, the top line is the motor vehicle emission budget, and the bottom line is our emission projection out to 2050. The graphs do show that conformity is demonstrated. And in conclusion, our draft plan is in conformance with the Federal Clean Air Act. Next slide. All right, I am going to turn it over to Jen Lasser, our Director of Workforce and Economic Development, who will talk about those areas of the plan. Jen?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Next slide. So basically, I'm here to talk to you today about the globally competitive economy section of the plan. And starting with workforce, we all know how important this is to the region, but specifically the strategy that we have is building a diverse local workforce that's going to meet the demand for highly skilled talent across our sectors. This is a critical need, especially as we need to grow the size of the candidate market and, more importantly, ensure that it not only has the hard skills but the soft skills to meet that 21st century expectations of a modern workforce. With the unemployment rate for Butler County being around 3.2%, we all know that this is a critical issue, as most of your employers are probably deeply entrenched in trying to find candidates and workers. And so some of the progress that we've made is we have a lot of workforce committees going on. And the goal of this has basically been to determine what those regional priorities are from a workforce standpoint. In addition, we're meeting to figure out what are those barriers to employment, what are those barriers to education, and we want to make sure we know and promote what the career pathways are and the on-the-job training opportunities for current and future workers. As many of you know, we are a Build Back Better Regional Challenge recipient of a $60 million grant to basically put together a training and assistance to businesses and employing workers in the robotics and autonomy industry. So this is a huge project with a lot of partners, but it includes regional university partners, your workforce investment boards, your community colleges, industry, pre-apprenticeship groups, labor, and the goal here again is to implement work readiness and technology, get curriculum working at the speed of business, and get people trained into family sustaining wages. In addition, we have a lot of our economic development partners creating campaigns to recruit new individuals and businesses to the region. We want to make sure that we have not only new businesses, but we keep our current businesses rooted and supported here. And finally, we're working with our workforce investment boards and partners to increase opportunities for underserved populations. So that could be anybody from long-term unemployed, maybe somebody who was previously incarcerated, individuals that may have had some challenges with substance abuse. Again, we want to provide opportunities to everybody, and that includes individuals that may have come from either historically underserved areas or underserved populations. Next slide. And so, again, under this area of globally competitive economy, infrastructure is another area of focus for us. So we want to keep our aging public infrastructure in a state of good repair. We know that that's not only needed to grow the region, but again, to keep those businesses and individuals rooted here. And so it is just important that we not only build for today, but we build with the infrastructure for tomorrow. And we want to make sure that we're prioritizing infrastructure that provides for economic success. So that's embracing innovation, that is utilizing technology that's going to improve efficiency, and supporting projects that maximize local use of locally derived energy industry products. So some of the progress that we've been making on this is we've utilized IIJA, transportation funding, grant resources to apply for and receive funding to improve, support, and grow the region's infrastructure. Again, as it's been mentioned on some prior calls, water, sewer projects are huge that we're seeing in southwestern Pennsylvania. We're working with our regional partners on energy diversification projects such as solar, carbon capture, natural gas, hydrogen hub. One of the things that you'll hear is that southwestern Pennsylvania has one of the most diverse energy economies in the world, meaning that we have access to a variety of energy resources. Regionally, Team PA has submitted a hydrogen hub application. We continue to determine the economic impacts of infrastructure projects. Again, we want to make sure that what we're doing is allowing for us to build for tomorrow to keep the folks that we have here today. And the question is, who's going to do that work? Well, your community colleges, your workforce investment boards, and other regional entities are putting together the support needs to do the training for things like advanced manufacturing, energy sector, and the infrastructure training is there in our community colleges to get people employed. Next. And finally, under globally competitive economy technology, fast-paced technology identification, deployment, and adoption across all sectors is going to give us a competitive advantage. And ensuring that the region is provided equal access to high-speed internet connectivity and broadband, it's essential to prevent residents and communities from being left behind. As we all know, COVID and the pandemic absolutely changed everything that we knew. So we've had multiple businesses need to go virtual. We've had people that needed healthcare, education. Everything that we did went virtual. And a lot of our regions and a lot of our counties and a lot of our towns were not prepared for that. So what we've done to kind of prepare and be more resilient, and some of these activities include the Connectivity Improvement Plan. So this was created to provide affordable, reliable broadband internet across the region. Your local governments applied for and were applying for middle mile grants. We hosted a regional broadband summit in February of 2023 in Butler County with over 200 attendees. There is a small business connectivity survey being conducted to really discuss with small businesses how they utilize broadband, how they utilize technology to make sure that what we're doing as a region not only supports the private use of broadband, but how do our businesses use that? And one way I really always like to give the example is we had a lot of brick and mortar businesses that were affected tremendously by COVID. And a lot of these businesses were able to utilize technology, broadband, et cetera, to start putting their goods and services online so that this shop, you can now purchase these items and they've now diversified their business. And then again, who's going to be doing the work? You have a lot of workforce training for linemen that's going to speed up that deployment. We're seeing a lot of programs get created to help individuals with pre-apprenticeships in lineman training so that we can get broadband out quicker. I look forward to any questions that you may have at the end of this presentation, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jen. I am going to go through some of the community-based initiatives, the strategies in our plan, and the progress that we're making. Next slide. All right, so educate and engage municipalities on best practices. We have held workshops for local governments on local project delivery and local bridge funding mechanisms. I know we held one in the District 10 counties of Butler, Armstrong, and Indiana. And I think we had somewhere between 20 and 30 municipalities attend. We want to promote strategic infrastructure investment in communities that reduces risks in dealing with flooding and landslides and an economic downturn. We've dedicated funding in the TIP and the long-range plan for landslide remediation. We have assisted counties, thanks to Jen's group, in allocating over $17 million in COVID-19 hospitality funds, CHIRP funding. The other strategies, invest in strategies that decelerate and adapt to and are resilient against the impacts of climate change, and promote and support sustainable regional water resource management. You can see some of these overlap with some of the things that Jen mentioned. We have expanded SPC's Water Resource Center programming and assistance. We've hired a dedicated environmental programs manager to expand SPC environmental programs, including sustainability and resiliency, and we continue to staff up that line at SPC. Next slide. We want to invest in strategies that are resilient against the impacts of climate change, again, and we want to support and encourage low-carbon transportation projects. We are leading the region's planning for the EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program with a broad coalition of partners and stakeholders, including some of you that are on with us this evening. We've created an online toolkit for the charging and fueling infrastructure discretionary funding program. Talk about electrification of our fleet, of our transit fleet and other fleets. We continue to program federal CMAQ eligible projects that provide the greatest benefit to regional air quality, because we still have work to do in that area. And we will begin to allocate federal carbon reduction program funding. That's a new program that came out of the IIJA transportation bill. And we will begin asking for projects and funding those projects and administering that program sometime this summer. And I'd like to also, let's go back to that slide. I'd like to invite Lillian Gabreski, our Manager of Sponsored Program Development, to talk a little bit about her group's activities related to some of what I just went over. Lillian?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I'll make this quick. So yes, I am under the Department of Strategic Initiatives and Policy. This is a newer department at SPC. It's about a year old. So I'm housed under there as the Manager of Sponsored Programs Development. We also have a Freight Manager, an Active Transportation Planner, and an Environmental Programs Manager in that group. The department essentially exists, and my position exists, to pursue non-traditional funding opportunities, which includes new federal programs under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or IIJA. So we're here to connect municipalities, counties, advocates, nonprofits, transit, what have you, all of our partners with funding for your unfinished projects. So if you look at the long-range transportation plan document, you'll see there's a list of unfunded project priorities in the back. We developed those with our county planners, looking at what the future priorities of each county were. Other projects, please feel free to reach out. We have a lot of technical expertise on this team and knowledge on funding and project development. So anything that you don't see programmed in the TIP or the long-range plan, we're here to help and direct you on what the best way to make those projects happen could be. So in addition to monitoring and, where appropriate, submitting applications for federal funding opportunities, we also operate our own internal discretionary funding programs. So I just wanted to hit on that really quick. Funding through these programs have been used for a lot of different projects regionally. A recent example is doing some of the streetscape work in downtown Butler. That was one that we just funded. County staff are very involved in the review process. So applications for our consolidated internal plan are going to be rolled out this summer. So you can see there'll be a unified guidance document that'll be on our site within the next week, and then we'll start accepting pre-applications for those programs over the next few months. So again, any questions, please feel free to reach out. That's pretty much the summary of what I'm here to say, and our group is here to help you, determine the best ways to get those projects funded.
Thanks, Lillian. Next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Rhonda Craig, our Public Involvement Coordinator, and Rhonda's going to get into how you can provide us feedback. Rhonda?
Thank you, Dom. So the public comment period is open, and it will close on Friday, June the 9th, so that's this Friday. There are a variety of ways for you to comment. You can verbally comment today. Also, like Dom said, you can drop your comments into the chat box. You can email comments to comments@spcregion.org. Or you can visit our website at spcregion.org and click on the Get Involved tab. Scroll to the bottom of that page and click on the public comment form. It's a pretty simple form to fill out, and you can just go ahead and submit your comments from there. Or you can email me, you can email your written comments to the P.O. Box address that's listed on the screen, or you can fax back your written comments to 412-391-9160. If you have any questions after this meeting, you can email me at rcraig@spcregion.org, or go ahead and give me a call there to the number that's on the screen. To the left there is the schedule of all of the public meetings that we had. So there's one more public meeting scheduled for Thursday, which is Allegheny's public meeting. And also all the public meetings or virtual public meetings can be found on our YouTube channel. I ask a favor of everyone on the call to please take what you learned back to your community members and your organizational partners and pass on that we want to hear from them in regards to their comments and feedback and direct them to the SPC's homepage. All comments and feedback are included in the public comment report. Next slide. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. This is a way to keep in the loop of all the exciting things that are taking place around our region all year round. Please follow us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. And like I said, you can also find all the virtual meetings or the public meetings on our YouTube channel, along with some videos and past meetings. A huge thank you to everyone for joining us today. We appreciate your time and your participation. And again, questions are up next, and you can unmute yourself or you can raise your hand, or again, you can drop those in the chat box. Thank you.
All right. Not seeing anything in the chat box, I think we'll just open the floor to any questions. I know that was, we talked for 50 minutes. We're done talking. And we'll just open the floor. If you want to go back to any slide or have any questions, every question is a good one. So I'll just open it up.
This is Kim Geyer. I think if perhaps we ask the participants that are on the PPP panel to, you know, if there's any roads or bridge projects or anything in their communities that is on their mind that need addressed or anything, perhaps to bring some of those projects up. In regards to if there's a road that's a problem in our community, or you know, wondering when the next time this road's going to be addressed or this bridge is going to be addressed. Perhaps, you know, if you ask that question, you know, people might chime in.
Yeah, and we have, thank you, Commissioner. We have the folks from PennDOT District 10, particularly if it's a state road, we have them with us here, so we have all the folks here to support answering any of those type of questions.
Yeah.
Hey, Dom, this is Kevin Hesens, East Butler Borough.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
I was just wondering, the bottom of Lick Hill, which would be 68, the bridge that goes over the railroad, there was talk about that a few years ago that they were going to replace that. Is that something that's still being looked at, or are they going to do anything with it, or no?
I'm gonna defer to Alice or Harold on that one.
Carnes Crossing.
Are we talking about Carnes Crossing
Bridge?
I don't know if that's what they call that at the bottom of 68 there, or where 422, 68, 38 comes together. If that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Is that, okay, that's all right. I didn't realize they called that Carnes Crossing.
So
not a problem. We use terminology that isn't always followed by everybody, so it's understandable. Right by the hospital that connects the community of Butler County to 422. That project is already on our books. We have things ready, pretty well ready to go. Alice can probably speak in more details, but we're running into some funding challenges because of inflation over the last number of years. All you people here have felt that in one way or the other. We are not immune to that. Our materials are costing much more than typical. As a result, our budget, our estimate went up substantially. And as a result, we're trying to figure out how we're going to pay for that project. We have all plans of delivering it here at some point. We just don't know exactly when. But Alice, I'll let you maybe add a little more detail from your engineering perspective.
You covered that, Harold.
Okay.
We feel everybody, the concerns that everyone has right now. It's just that the estimate during COVID on that project went up substantially, and we don't have enough to cover it right now. We have received some additional funds through some of the grants, but it turned out that it wasn't enough. I mean, it's the top of our list, and we're asking, we're asking for extra help with central office. It's just not there yet.
Yeah, we have. Correct me if I'm wrong, Harold. We have that bridge partially funded on the tip, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, and then we've also discussed perhaps putting in a federal discretionary funding application as well.
I believe so, Dominic, and I'm not sure exactly where that stands. I know we're still, it's still on our radar, and we're looking for ways that could make it possible. But right now, it still remains underfunded.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the question, Kevin. And as we're talking about, Alice mentioned about some funding that we did receive. I need to provide credit to our local legislators. Congressman Kelly was very effective in getting us $6 million in order to provide to that project. It's going to be able to provide a lot of additional funding that we did not have. And also they were able to get $2.5 million to the Butler bypass project. So we certainly appreciate Congressman Kelly's support in moving those very much needed projects forward in the region. So thanks to them.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Alice. Any other questions?
So Brian has his hand up.
Yeah, Dom, this is Brian Getz. I'm Executive Vice President with the Butler Company, and we're a real estate development firm in Pittsburgh based, but we've got substantive holdings in Butler County, specifically Jackson Township. I have about 200 acres. I apologize. I don't know why I can't get my video back on again, but it's not. Trying again. We have been working with Jackson Township specifically in Butler County and Commissioners Oshie and Kim Geyer, Kevin and whatnot on our developments over the years. We've been up there about 12, 15 years. We've got 4 or 5 phases of development. Right now we have about 600 some thousand square feet of space that we've developed in a couple of phases. We're right at the intersection, the Evans City intersection, right off of 79, leads into Route 19. So our question from our development team has been the ongoing improvements to Route 19 and specifically the 528 bridge over 79. There's been improvements done to that bridge over the last, I would say, 5 years. Kim or Kevin may be able to help me out on the timing there, but it's getting to the point as we continue to develop property there, and we've got substantial acreage yet to develop. We actually picked up another 29 acres. So we're just interested in if there's any process through the SPC that could shed some light on that bridge, that overpass, and improving that for the benefit of the entire community there. The park and ride is there. You referenced earlier in your slides some monies associated with that in order to get the access to the city of Pittsburgh and back for transportation purposes. So as I say, we've got a strong commitment to Butler County. We're going to continue to have that commitment for many, many years. And we're just looking to see if there's any opportunity there to improve that, particularly the overpass over 79.
Yeah. So Dom, I think what Brian is talking about is the overpass that goes over from 528 to 19 over Interstate 79 toward Jackson Point. And what makes that challenging is because you've got now growth and development that is starting to compound, it's starting to grow in Jackson, and you've got Interstate 79, and there is no ramp coming from north to south that gets off on 528. There's no ramp or exit. You have to go down to the furthest exit, or you have to exit earlier to get to that area.
Right.
And that's a commercial area. There's lots of jobs there. Again, there's a park and ride there. And so that's something we've talked to Jackson Township. I've talked to the manager, and we've talked to Buncher Group in regards to, someday having a ramp off of Interstate 79 that goes up onto 528 that allows people access to that area.
Yeah. I know that there were some recent access improvements made on 528 a couple of years ago, but what you're referring to is a pretty substantial project. I think there might be some funding mechanisms for that, like through I'll say Department of Community and Economic Development, maybe since that's off an interstate. I mean, we have so many unfunded interstate needs right now. That might be a tough way to go. I don't know, Harold or Alice, do you have anything else you might want to add to that?
Yeah, Dominic, I believe that's in the limits of preliminary engineering that we are taking a look at on I-79, the I-79 widening. And I know that's one thing we're going to be looking at with the alternatives, but it's in the very early stages of preliminary engineering.
So it's more like in a study phase. And
Yeah.
I think Ryan mentioned earlier in the presentation the interstate program is a program that is managed by PennDOT Central Office in Harrisburg, and that's a tough program because it's we're competing with Interstate 83 and all these other interstates out east. But I guess it's good to hear that we're at least starting to study that, because I understand there are development pressures in that area for sure.
Yeah, and it's a capacity adding project, so we'll be adding, a lane on I-79. So at that point, work would need to be done on the bridge as well.
Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Well, certainly.
We're looking into it. We're looking into it. We're funding it is a whole other challenge.
Right. We certainly understand. There's lots to improve upon. But no, we appreciate that. We appreciate the comments. It's just something that we'd like to make everyone aware of, that there are developers in Butler County, ourselves included, that continue to invest in the community, and the road improvements have been happening, but some of the larger projects need some attention, and I think it's only going to benefit everyone in the Cranberry Township, Jackson Township areas, and obviously the I-79 corridor, as Commissioner Geyer indicated, with the two ramps currently system, that someday, and we've got acreage on our property that we're willing to work with to provide additional land for those off ramps. So, it's just something to raise everyone's concern. Yeah. So thank you.
If you recall the pie chart that we showed in the presentation, yes. We had a very small sliver for capacity adding, and that is really in Butler County. I mean, that's where the growth is. 228 project is capacity adding. So we understand that there's growth and development pressures in that area.
All right.
Yeah. I would just add in the southern part of our county, the southern tier, just what you said, Dom, the capacity issues are going to continue because we have townships that are approving growth and development, residential and commercial properties in that development, and we have a road infrastructure that just can't support it because the people are coming faster than the roads can accommodate,
Right.
by the time we get the roads addressed. So I think it's good to have this discussion because, we have projects on the tip and we have projects that we're trying to seek funding for at the federal and state level. But the beauty of having all these people on this panel is they bring to us an awareness of roads and bridges and infrastructure projects that they're being challenged by.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to hear from them what's on their mind. And it helps us as county commissioners and leaders to be able to, make adjustments, adapt, and try to support and help, direct resources to those areas.
Yep, agreed.
Rhonda, this is Commissioner Oshie. So just kind of a question about process. So this panel would we would be seeking their input in the beginning also. Is that true? So we're now in the end of this process, but we would have had, this is the first time this new panel is kind of together. There would have been an opportunity in the beginning also, under normal circumstances, to weigh in before we start through the whole TIP process. Is that correct, Dom, Rhonda?
Yeah, we had a first round of meetings late last year. But the thing is, we're going right from this long-range plan into a TIP update. And so we'll be convening again because we are toward the finish line of the long-range plan. But right after that, we're going to look at the four-year plan.
Right.
Starting this summer. And so we'll be reconvening probably in the fall to look at that 4-year plan, which is the most critical because it's those are the active projects that are about to start or are in process, and those are the ones we really need to keep funded,
Right.
keep going.
Dom, I'll jump in here too with a suggestion because this came up in one of the other counties. We draw most of our pre-tip comments from what's called the STC pre-tip, pre-TYP process. And that was back in April, March, April timeframe. It's now closed. However, if you have ideas that you want to get in front of us, both SPC, the county, and District 10, you can provide comment through the comment period that we have open right now till the end of the week, because we will be diving into all those comments and we'll be triaging them and sorting them. And if it's a specific comment that pertains to the 2025 TIP update, we'll just incorporate that right into our work group meetings where we consider the comment that we've already gotten from the STC comment period. So just to wrap that up, it's not too late to make comments in advance of the 2025 TIP. You can use the process that Rhonda just explained, and we'll look at it. And if we see that it's for the long-range plan, that's fine. If we think it's more specific to the TIP, then our response will be, hey, we're going to retain this comment and we're going to consider it in the development of the 2025 TIP update. So I guess it's a short way of saying, if you have a comment about an intersection or a location or something, just use this this avenue of the comment period we have open right now, and we'll get it in front of the right people.
Yeah, I mean, we're open to any and all comment 365, 24/7. I mean, we have a deadline on this particular plan, but we're going right from plan to tip development. Both of these plans, both the long range plan and the tip, are living, breathing documents. I mean, our transportation committee meets monthly to make amendments and adjustments to the tip, and so we're open to hearing comments all the time.
Dom, Ryan.
Yep, Rhonda, go ahead.
There is a question in the chat box from Brett. Would it be feasible for state, federal funding to match dollars for dollar on TIP identified privately funded projects?
And are you able to hear me, everyone? I've been quietly sitting here listening and enjoying, but and what I meant by that, I'm a vice president of land development for Weaver Homes. We build approximately 100 homes a year in the southern Butler County, very northern Allegheny County, everything we're all talking about. And it kind of got me to thinking what Brian had said. Brian and I know each other, but currently we're going to enter into, in my particular case, a land development project, 100 homes or something like that. We're going to have a tip fee that's required to be paid to that township. And right now, it does vary a little bit, but depending on whose tip that is, if it's a state road versus a county or a township road, we get various levels of credits back, if you will. And I didn't know from a standpoint of us when we're looking to develop a piece of property, if we know in advance, there's more we can do as developers, if we know. Especially if we know that dollar we're going to put into the road is a dollar from the state, I suppose, if that makes sense, with respect to who's paying for what. It's an opportunity there to maybe increase some projects, additional turn lanes. We're typically not into, or we're certainly not into off ramps off of 79, but signalization, roundabouts, additional turn lanes, more localized improvements. Currently, we're not getting that dollar for dollar match, if that makes sense.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Alice and Harold. I mean, I believe in the past there has been some, collaboration with municipalities, like utilizing their impact fees that they collect from folks like you on projects that benefit everybody. Whether it be a turn lane or whatever, like some of the projects that you mentioned, roundabouts. I believe Cranberry collects a traffic impact fee. That's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think in the past, the district has worked with municipalities to really utilize that impact fee and really use it as leverage for other funding to create projects on roadways. Alice or Harold, if you want to chime in.
No, you're exactly correct, sir. When we do one of those projects, the variation comes in whether we're improving a township road or a state road as far as our impact fee credit. So if I've got to pay $1,000 a unit on the tip fee, which is the tip program at the local, being at the township level, and we've got to do a state improvement, this is not across the board, but I'm only getting an impact fee credit for every dollar I spend of 50 cents if it's a state road. Meaning, it's a little hard to explain, but it's a credit in lieu of actually paying. We're doing the work. We get a dollar for dollar credit at the local level and a 50 cent per dollar credit at the state level. Now that's more of a local, and Kim, that's maybe something you and I can talk about.
Oh, okay. So that sounds like more like the traffic impact fee local ordinance details, right? I mean, I don't, I mean, I'm not an expert at that stuff, but I know that those, I mean, there are certain state guidelines that have to be followed for those traffic impact fees, but the municipalities also work out the details of how they want to enact those things. So that sounds to me more like, and I'm not sure which township you're dealing with, but I know Cranberry collects them. I'm not sure if some of the other northern municipalities collect them as
Nearly
well.
all of them, nearly all of them do at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the, and maybe that is more of a local, but I'm not sure whose, we'll say, rule that is, whether that is truly a local or there's only so many dollars that can be used at the state level or to improve a state road. But I only mention it as a means. We're going to do the improvement anyways. From a business owner and a developer, there's more dollars to stretch there. If there's more collaboration or cooperation, we can certainly afford more, given if it's over time and not a all up front kind of scenario where we've got a $2 million improvement that we've somehow got to fund before we build the first home.
I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that.
I don't think we have too many, local
municipality
folks on here.
Yeah.
We have them on our panel. They're just, we don't have them on this meeting.
Okay.
But, back to what Commissioner Oshie was talking about and Rhonda and Ryan, we have a whole new panel here with Butler County. So we're really excited about it because we've got a great cross-section of valuable people that have come from all walks of life and have valuable expertise to offer. So I know they are excited to be able to participate and contribute. And so we want to tap into that valuable resource here. So Rhonda, I'll coordinate with you to get together to get Butler County scheduled earlier so we have more time for input in the fall.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Hello, hi, this is Chuck Stowe from Allegheny Township. I come in the meeting a little late because I was down in Harrisburg and I just got home a little after 5. But I had a complaint from one of my residents on Foxburg Road and Parker Pike. He was turning on to the Foxburg Road crossing traffic, and there's a sign there that says on the Parker Pike, Hill blocks view. I think he didn't see the other car coming, and he said that was kind of dangerous. He didn't have an accident or anything, but he was quite concerned about that. So I said I'd pass it on to at the TIP meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
We will note that comment and respond to it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Everyone, this is Mary Hess. I'm from Zillionople Borough. I've kind of been sitting here quietly, but I was paying close attention to what Brian said about the 528 intersection and Zillionople and our growth in the region and just our community. We've struggled and we're hoping that we can get some kind of connector to eliminate some of the truck traffic that goes through Zillionople. And I think PennDOT's been reviewing that. We're hoping to get on at least the long-term plan for that connector. Traffic from Route 68 that comes from Beaver County impacts our community quite a bit. Route 19, 288, and 68 are all come together in Zillionople. But the lack of an interchange that goes north at that 528 intersection impacts us. Also because something that wasn't mentioned, Buncher's huge there, but we also have one of the largest FedEx facilities there. And they connect they connect to 79 there, and they have to come down through Jackson almost into Zillionople to head north. But also they go down 528 and connect at 68. And I'd love to see improvements on 68 widening through Evans City, because I believe that for the growth of Butler itself, the southern region of Zillionople, Cranberry, Jackson, and our ability to get to Butler and the jobs and the economic development for Butler itself, it would be a key piece, so to speak. So we have Route 8, and I think there's challenges from Pittsburgh, but I think 68 is essential for Butler's growth. That's all.
Yep. Thank you, Mary. I'm somewhat familiar with the whole issue of trucks in Zillionople. We actually did SPC staff did a road safety audit at the request of PennDOT staff, and we made a lot of smaller safety suggestions. We saw the truck traffic through town. I don't know if you're familiar with the audit that we did. It was a couple of years ago, but we also made some, I'll say, short-term suggestions on truck routing in that safety audit as well. But I'm somewhat familiar with that whole issue of trucks through the community. Yeah.
Dom, again, this is Leslie. I'm just going to add back into the bigger picture here that for the longest time, the funding was not available for new construction, new capacity, because you're trying to maintain infrastructure that currently exists and improve bridges that currently exist. So I think now with the infrastructure bill and with the reauthorization of Act 89, it's possible, that we're going to see some opportunities for competitive funding or for, some planning in those areas. But again, knowing how far behind we really were in infrastructure, this is what makes these new projects and new capacity difficult, because you're just trying to maintain what you currently have. If you might well imagine, when you're trying to just manage those assets, that's where the focus has been, on just trying to manage the current assets to make sure that the businesses that currently exist can still have access to what they're currently doing, and that the residences have that same capacity. So I think that's part of the problem that we have to keep in mind in the big picture, is that it's going to be a matter of pursuing some competitive opportunities as we go forward, probably, and also in advocating for whatever the state does next with this transportation bill. Where does that go, and what is the plan there? So lots that we're going to have to pay attention to and think about as we move forward, because that's we all think that it's these adding these new constructions is certainly needed and recognized, but the challenge that these folks have is you have a finite amount of money, and you're trying to maintain what you currently have. So we have to figure this out. And that's, we just need to keep that in mind when we're trying to plan, when we're trying to advocate, and when we're looking at it. And even with the bill, it still not near what you would need. And then with the increase in costs, there's your challenge. Now you've significantly, 40% in some cases, increase the cost of these projects. So it's going to be an ongoing challenge we're going to have to continue to pursue, but the competitive piece is something that we'll have to keep on top of.
Yep, exactly. I mean, we showed that pie chart that had, over 40% of our budget for bridges. We have made a lot of strides in our bridges over the last 10 years. We've cut the number of poorly rated bridges in half, but we still have 10% of state-owned bridges, almost 10% of state-owned bridges in poor condition, And we have 25% of locally owned bridges. That's county-owned bridges and municipal-owned bridges. Now, I'm talking across the region in poor condition. So we still have work to do. I mean, like Commissioner Oshie mentioned, we still have work to do, and that's the challenge, trying to juggle that, trying to keep our existing assets, in good condition, and trying to add capacity.
Dom, is it possible for you on that note to make the panel aware of like the past where our local monies, our state monies went toward interstates, and why that was, and what that did, created an extra challenge for us at the local level?
I can speak to some of that. I don't know if Alice or Harold would want to speak to that.
Yeah.
In terms of how some of our, PennDOT central office in Harrisburg took some extra money out of each of our tip pots and dedicated them to improving the condition of some of our interstates, and a lot of that, and admittedly, I got to say, much of that was out east. Some of the condition of the interstates out east were pretty bad, and so that did create an extra challenge for us, for sure.
Yeah. So I just
to build on that.
I don't want to misrepresent. If the PennDOT folks want to chime in there.
No, Dom, I thought you did a nice job. It certainly there was our interstate needs certainly are outstanding out there, and as Dom outlined, our eastern portion of the state with Interstate 95, Interstate 83, 81, certainly were in dire straits and had some condition issues. So they have absorbed a lot of the funds, and as I don't know if everybody knows on this call, but we have federal mandates for measures, performance measures, and that is for our interstates, our interstate rideability. So that is getting the attention of everything that we do. So there was some additional funds pulled off of the top for all of our TIP funds that go to the interstates. That happened here a couple of years ago, some additional funds. So certainly that just takes away from our ability to provide more localized projects. But we're hopeful that we're going to see an ebb and flow to that process. And as we have needs here in the future on our interstates, that they'll be accepting and trying to provide us those needs as well. But there is certainly a shift in moving funds towards the interstate. And we certainly don't want to run on bad roads in those conditions. That's more of a trunk of the tree approach that District 10 has always embraced. We want to make sure that all of our interstates, if we're going to have one good road in District 10, it's going to be an interstate. And if all of our interstates are in good shape, we want it to be in our NHS that's next. So we want to follow that trunk of the tree approach to make sure our major networks and arterials are in our best riding condition. So it makes sense from a global perspective.
And that being said, like you just mentioned, global perspective, I mean, the condition of any part of our interstate system, especially in Pennsylvania, really affects everyone's economy. I mean, you think about how things get to where they need to be through freight, and just folks just trying to get to, in their travels, trying to get from point A to point B. I mean, any part of the interstate within Pennsylvania affects the economies everywhere within Pennsylvania to a degree. Any other questions?
This was excellent information. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Greatly appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on some of these things. It's enlightening and very helpful. So we appreciate your time.
Yeah, and if you want to put pen to paper and get it to us directly. As I said, we recorded the meeting, so we'll go back through the recording. we'll go back through our notes and respond to the comments we need to respond to. But I really appreciate everybody's time here. Again, thank you everybody for being here, and look forward to continuing the dialogue in the fall with everybody here. With that, everyone have a great evening, and we'll see you in the fall.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate your time.
Thank
you all.
Here,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
everyone.